Welcome to another Fingernail Fixer video. For this, I don't have any clients that wear natural nail polish, so I am testing the Dazzle Dry on myself. To begin the process, now that I've had the education, I'm going to use the tips and tricks that I learned from taking the Dazzle Dry phone consultation education, watching the video, and taking notes. And an important part of their process is to actually use the Dazzle Dry prep. It actually mentions in the education that you can run into wear issues if you are using your normal nail prep steps that are dehydrating. And of course, using C&D products for 21 years of my career, I naturally used Scrub Fresh as my nail prep the first time around. And as you can see from the photos, I did have some chipping on the edges. And one of the things I learned in the education is that using a dehydrating nail prep can lead to some chipping on the edges. So this time I'm going to use the Dazzle Dry nail prep. And I'm using a 4 square from Soft Landings because it is completely lint free. And really scrubbing at each nail on a clean spot of the 4 square so that each nail gets its own little clean spot on the square, so that I'm not taking the dirt and oils from one nail and transferring it to another nail. And just really getting down in there and scrubbing in those sidewalls and making sure that the free edge gets a good scrub. And everybody has been scrubbed nice and good. And so as you can see, I don't have the chalky finish that I would normally be used to from the prep steps that I'm accustomed to. The next step is going to be the base coat. With this base coat, it comes to you cloudy, and I'll let you take the education to learn all about the cool little rubber components that it has. With the base coat, you want to do a generous application and seal the edges. So I put the base coat in hot water to bring it up to a clear, so that it's clear like water. I'm going to make sure that I'm sealing the edges of my nails and giving the base coat a nice generous application on each nail. This is definitely something I'm not used to. Normally I would be trying to squeegee the base coat on as thin as possible. That is definitely what I did the first time around. I tried to get the base coat on super thin and really squeegee off any excess. So to give the base coat a fairly generous application feels wrong. And now that I have taken the education, I have it in my notes that this is the way it's supposed to be done. So I am following the rules. I will go ahead and speed up the rest of the application so you don't have to watch me apply to all 10 nails. You do want to let the base coat dry to a matte finish and then apply a second layer of base coat. Really strange, I know, but that again is in the education. So we're going to let this dry to a matte finish and apply a second layer of base coat. So I'm gonna do that under camera, but I'm gonna go ahead and speed it up so that you don't get bored. I'm going to use the color Blue Blood to polish. As you can see with the second layer of base coat, it doesn't get as matte as the first layer. And the trick is to be patient. So you can see on this hand, it's still a little wet. You can see how it's still super shiny on some parts, and you can see it's starting to get a little more matte on this hand. So you've got to be patient on that base coat if you want to get that 5-minute dry time at the finish, but it does not get as obviously matte as that first layer of base coat did. So here's where your patience is really going to pay off. So just kind of giving it the opportunity to not look that really slick wet, but just kind of that matte wet, if you will, but not that like top coat matte like we're used to thinking of. So now as that finishes off, see how it takes that more dry look versus that really water slick wet look. Can you see the difference now that these are dry? So let's transition into color. With the color, you're going to start off with a medium layer of color and then come in and do a generous layer of color. For that medium layer of color, you kind of want to clean your brush off so that you have half the brush cleaned off. For that generous layer of color, we'll leave that whole side of the brush full of color. And again, this goes against everything I thought I knew about polishing, to not put the polish on as thin as I possibly can. And if you're kind of struggling with the idea of medium versus generous, I did a completely separate video just to show it. And I'll put a link down in the caption if you want to hunt it up. Because I was having a hard time wrapping my mind around it because I'm so used to polish is just supposed to be thin. There's not supposed to be any other word for coverage other than thin. So this whole medium and generous business really blew my mind. It is very easy to apply. The glitter is small enough that it doesn't stick out and ruin your margins. Nothing's more frustrating than to be trying to get good margins and you've got chunks of glitter sticking out. It's also small enough that it doesn't feel rough. You're going to seal all the edges on the second layer as well as the first. Apply that first layer medium and then apply the second layer generous. Let that first layer dry to a matte finish, same with the second layer. I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up so you don't get bored. At this point, I'm ready for top coat. As you'll notice, that last layer of color is starting to go matte. This hand is still a little shiny, so it's not quite dry. I want to wait until that second hand is dry. And once that second hand is dry, we'll be ready to apply the top coat. The top coat is also going to go on generously. And when your top coat starts to have some tiny bubbles in it, you'll be able to use the tip of your brush to kind of slide it over and pop any of the bubbles, because those bubbles can lead to chipping. And something that I learned into class is when you're using a color that has quite a lot of the glitter or sparkle to it, like the blue blood or something like the Jewel Effects, the diamond, you can do 2 layers of the top coat to make sure that you get the optimum sparkle from your color. So I'm actually going to apply 2 layers of the top coat because I really want to see that optimum sparkle effect from the blue blood, because it really has a cool sparkle effect to it that has a unique depth to it. All right, it looks like this hand is now just as matte as the first hand. I'm ready to apply this top coat. The top coat is also going to seal the edge on every single finger on both layers, as well as be generously applied. So I'm gonna speed this up so that you don't get bored, and do 2 layers of the top coat application. One of the bragging points of the Dazzle Dry is that it is dry in 5 minutes. So let's put it to the test. And naturally, I'm not going to make you hang out for 5 literal minutes. So let's speed it up. Five minutes has gone by. Is it dry? Let's see. Fingerprint test. No fingerprints. I can rub it. Orange wood stick test. I can click it. So I can fingerprint it and no fingerprints. I can rub it, no rubbing. And I can click it with the orange wood stick. So I would say the 5-minute claims are accurate. So let me know in the comments below what you think of Dazzle Dry. And I would say the education is definitely worth it. So if you're gonna try Dazzle Dry, definitely get the education. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and thanks for joining me on video.